I told y'all that this week would be live, but I lied. This is a pre-recorded edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here. I'm recording this October 16th, 6:30 Eastern Time. So hopefully you guys are still able to fire away your comments. I'd love to get to them. I will get to them as I see this populate on the Buffalo fan base network, as well as my YouTube channel, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, as well as my Facebook. So greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. This show sponsored by 26shirts.com. A lot to go over here in this rapid fire Thomas Take Sports Podcast, as I like to call it. A lot to discuss. That's just putting it mildly, but repping both the Sabres and the Bills tonight. Buffalo Sabres puck drop 7 tonight against Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm coming off of feeling mighty fine from the last Buffalo Sabres game in which they beat the Florida Panthers 5-2. I was in attendance. Shout out to Razor Rob Ray being inducted in the Buffalo Sabres Hall of Fame. Little overdue, if I might add. If I would have any, criticism, overdue, not shouldn't have happened, which is what I've been reading, which I don't know why, but Rob Ray deserved it. So I want to start the show with that. As well, show sponsor, 26shirts.com for all of your Buffalo sports apparel needs. Go to 26shirts.com. Find yourself a Sabres, Bills, Bandits, Bisons item, or just a Buffalo City, Western New York appreciation item. So a lot to discuss, and putting it mildly, the Buffalo Bills beat the New York Jets 23-20 in a game that was far too close. And I think I'll touch on this before I get into the other news that the Bills have acquired wide receiver Amari Cooper. But to me, this was a game that was nauseating for the simple fact of I don't think it should have been as close as it was. And I think the only reason as to why it was as close as it was is due in large part to the fact that the referees had a thing or two to say about this game. They consistently called flags in this game. They consistently took away great opportunities from not only the Buffalo Bills, but the New York Jets as well. And it was so bad that even Aaron Rodgers was willing to go out on a limb and say, you know what, this roughing the passer call that was called on AJ Epinesa was complete and total bullshit. Should not have happened, was not pass interference, was not in any way, shape, or form roughing on me. When the guy that gets the call says that the roughing the passer was a terrible call by the powers that be in that game, the referees, you know that there's these guys just had no idea what they were doing. They were calling everything and then some. They would show the replay of the penalty on Spencer Brown, unnecessary roughness or holding or whatever it was that they said. And I didn't see it. And I will go back in the memory bank of this game eventually as the weeks pass and we look back on this season, no matter how it ends for the Buffalo Bills, and say that Teron Johnson saved the Buffalo Bills with his game-sealing interception of Aaron Rodgers, a phenomenal play, one in which that did hurt Mike Williams, but it just goes to show you how unsafe this game is. When one guy makes a play, another guy gets hurt. So Teron Johnson did his thing. It was great to have him back in the lineup. Buffalo's defense in the first half was really coming up short. This Hail Mary that Aaron Rodgers was able to pull off once again was one in which I thought could have easily been prevented had these players not gone for the football and rather gone for the football to swat it rather than to catch it. Big no-no, big no-no in terms of what a defensive player should do in those scenarios and situations. But you guys that have tuned into this show each and every week, dating back to April, and I know a lot of you out there that have done that, and I greatly appreciate the love and support that you guys have shown me the last 7, almost 8 years now. But I also have to say that you guys remember the name that I talked about in the spring. Ray Davis. He did his thing. Monday Night Football was, a guy that stepped up and then some in what was his first real starting action. Ray Davis did everything that he needed to do and then some. Over 100 yards from scrimmage, total yards. I thought Keon Coleman made a lot of nice plays on Monday night. I thought that the Bills' run game could be even better than what you all thought it would be, because I have been talking about Ray Davis since April. I've been talking about Ray Davis actually since March as a guy that I wanted the Buffalo Bills to draft. Was really happy that they did. The kid can play. I want to see James Cook back healthy this week against Tennessee, and I hope that Ray Davis can still be a part of this Buffalo Bills run game, of this offense, and we see more of a dual set at the running back position, dual threats in Cook and Davis. I like to see it. So let's get to the trade, because I think that is really important. These last 3 weeks that we've seen from the Buffalo Bills, whether it's against Baltimore, whether it was against Houston, whether it was against the Jets, the Buffalo Bills wide receiver core, the Keon Colemans, the Khalil Shakirs, the Mac Hollins type players that they have at wide receiver, all the wide receivers that they have, it's safe to say that they cannot create separation. And really the only guy that's been able to is Khalil Shakir. And Brandon Beane knew that he had to make a move. He knew that it had to be a player that was experienced, that was a little bit on the cheaper side salary-wise, which is very hard to find, and somebody that has statistically consistently been productive in each and every situation that they've played within. And a guy by the name of Amari Cooper becomes available, and a team like the Buffalo Bills, with the situation that they've had these last 3 weeks, it would have been foolish to not even kick the tires on this idea of this player. And Buffalo did more than kick the tires. They kicked the tires and they made it happen. So I feel that this was a move that was completely necessary, that was completely warranted, and one that puts Buffalo in a much better position offensively. Because not only is Amari Cooper a very good player, but I think Amari Cooper actually makes the players around him better, is going to make Keon Coleman better, is going to make Khalil Shakir better. And what do I mean by better? How is he going to make them better? You guys will probably raise that question to me. I think just the experience that this guy brings to the field, knowing that it's been proven, whether Amari Cooper is playing with the Raiders, whether he's playing with the Cowboys, whether he's playing with the Browns, now the Bills, this is his fourth stop. He's not the flashiest receiver out there. I will throw that. He's just a solid route runner, solid hands, just a kind of well-rounded wideout that I think will bring a little bit of a I guess I should say fear in the defense that should make the other players open, that should make the other players get their fair share of targets. And that's really exciting. So I think whether Amari Cooper at this time, we don't know if he's going to play or not, but whether he does, whether he doesn't, I definitely think that he's going to be a player that will bring an acumen to this team that is going to make this offense better. It's going to make the pieces flow a little bit easier than what we've seen from within this offense. And safe to say, Josh Allen, he needs to have guys around him that he can rely on. Josh Allen deserves to have guys around him that he can rely on. And through the first 6 weeks, I don't know if I can confidently say that the players at the wide receiver position that Buffalo has had are ones that he can rely on. We don't see the confident Josh Allen that we need to see throwing the football. We see a guy that's a little hesitant. We see a guy that doesn't really know who to rely on. Now you have Amari Cooper. That's number one. Number two, Dalton Kincaid. Number three, Dawson Knox. 4, Khalil Shakir. However you want to rank them. I definitely think Amari Cooper poses a very unique skill set, and one that, they talk about age with every single player. You talk about age first and foremost. Where does he stand as a player in this league? He's 30 years old. So, of course, he's got more years behind him than ahead of him, especially as a wide receiver. But I would argue that given the path that this player has had, going from place to place now in Buffalo, that he's a young 30. He's not washed up. He's not slow. He's not somebody that is damaged goods either. He stayed healthy throughout the entirety of his career. He's played in some really poor offenses, and he's been a great player in poor offenses. And he's also been a great player in great offenses. And I think a lot of the lack of production that people want to talk about is in large part, again, due to the fact that he's played with really bad quarterbacks. He has never played with a quarterback like Josh Allen. Now, I will be the first to say that I said the same thing about Curtis Samuel, and I had hoped that Curtis Samuel would be a big part of this offense. And I think that this addition of Amari Cooper does kind of add to whether it's our frustrations with Curtis Samuel or our demand for Curtis Samuel to do a little bit more here. We should see that one way or another, whether it's productive, whether it's unproductive. I think that this move has a lot to do with the effort or lack thereof that we've seen from the wide receiving core on the Buffalo Bills this season thus far. And something needed to be done. Brandon Beane from the press box can see things a little bit differently than Sean McDermott. Joe Brady from the press box can see a little, or from the booth, or whatever you want to call it, can see things a little bit differently than Sean McDermott on the sideline. And Sean McDermott as well knew that this offense was going to look a little bit different. He's not the offensive-minded coach. He's the defensive-minded coach. That's his bread and butter. That's his baby. But he handed that baby over to Bobby Babich. He handed the offense over fully to Joe Brady. They wanted to keep Joe Brady, and I think Joe Brady had a lot to do with this move, as well as Josh Allen, as well as Brandon Beane. Sean McDermott says, yeah, let's do it. This is what we need to do to make this team better. Let's make it happen. Let's put a player on this team that we think can make the wide receiving core that much better around Josh Allen. And I agree. I agree with this move. I think if anybody disagrees with this move, they already have a preconceived notion about the team prior to the move happening. So they feel like this move is just not going to be one that's going to make the Bills better, or I do. And I love the fact that it came moments after the New York Jets traded for Davante Adams. Buffalo was 4-2. The New York Jets are now 2-4. So the pace in which Buffalo has to go down, the pace in which the New York Jets have to embark on, the Jets have to try a lot harder than what we've seen the first 6 weeks. The Jets have their backs against the wall. Does Davante Adams make the New York Jets offense better? Of course he does. But does Amari Cooper make the Buffalo Bills offense better? Of course he does too. Both of these teams got better. Miami is in a state of flux right now, wondering whether Tua is going to be back this week or next week. Like there's no in between either, I should say, next week or the week after that. It doesn't appear that Tua is ready anytime soon, and that is drastically impacted for all of the criticisms of Tua, and they're warranted. He's the better quarterback than Brett Hundley. He's the better quarterback than Skylar Thompson. And you know, I think that there were other backup alternatives that Miami could have embarked on that were much better than those guys, but they didn't. They decided to go cheap, and it's worked against them. So this is a podcast that I'm really happy to bring to the table once again, because I feel like this was a move that I've been pounding the table for. I just didn't know how it would come, when it would come, or why it would come, potentially, and whether it needed to or not. We didn't know those details prior to the season. Bills Mafia is always optimistic, as we should be, with Josh Allen. You know, they got that guy, right? But Keon Coleman has done really well. I'm not going to knock him. I think this is more about what Curtis Samuel hasn't been able to bring to the offense, because Coleman is going to play within his role. That role is specified for him. That go down the field, contested catch, wideout. Curtis Samuel is this moving piece, or was sort of thought as this moving piece. I don't know why it hasn't worked, but I do know that Amari Cooper is a better player than Curtis Samuel. So if Buffalo tries to use Amari Cooper in that form and fashion, could really benefit this team greatly throughout the rest of this season. And of course, moving forward and kind of wrapping things up here, I would say that this game between the Bills and Titans is not a gimme. There is no game that is a gimme in this league. And to preview it, I think is pretty short and pretty brief. Which team is going to show up? Which Buffalo Bills team is going to show up? Is it going to be the team that we saw against Baltimore? It's going to be the team that we saw against Houston. It's going to be the team that we saw against the Jets, the team the first 3 weeks of the season. I think the Titans are a weak opponent, but that's what kind of scares me about this one. Now, I think Buffalo's going to win. I think Buffalo's going to win 24-10. I don't feel confident about the Titans' offense. Will Levis has looked horrible. The run game is spotty. Tajay Spears is week to week with an injury, which is a huge loss to that offense. I think he's a very underrated runner in this league. But I think that Buffalo will get it done. I think that they're going to beat Tennessee. I said 24-10. I think it could be 28-10. I'll redo my score. You want to talk X factors, as I like to do on Sunday sessions with the boys, Scott and Swank, 24/7 Buffalo Fandemonium. I think the X factor is Amari Cooper. What he brings to this offense is going to be key. Whether he plays is going to be key, but I think he's going to play. I think the urgency to play is always there for a guy like Amari Cooper. I think the urgency to play with a guy like Josh Allen is furthermore reason why Amari Cooper is probably doing jumping jacks and somersaults over the fact that he was traded from the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. So there you have it, folks. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I will be live next week. I greatly appreciate you guys firing away your comments, knowing that this was pre-recorded. But, of course, schedule, dinner, plans, all that. I always want to put a show out for 8 o'clock, whether it's live or pre-recorded. Thank you so much for tuning in. And, of course, I'll be back next week live to discuss the recap of this game and, of course, the preview to Buffalo versus Seattle, which that one takes place at 4 o'clock. It's a West Coast game. Buffalo goes home to take on the Titans this week. Then they go out on the road to take on Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. I'll be sure to give you a preview and prediction of that game and my analysis of this upcoming game between the Bills and Titans. That's on next week's show. Of course, next week, very excited for that, October 23rd, live right here on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network, as well as follow along at Ryan Thomas Take on social media for all my instant reactions to all things Buffalo Bills, combat sports, Buffalo Sabres. Let's hope for a W tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh. For that, the Thomas Take is over. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.